Alright, so what would happen if you build something using just one piece, like literally only one item, scaled and twisted 100 different ways? Well, that's what we're doing today. I'm doing the one piece challenge in Planet Coaster 2, and the piece I choose is wooden support plank, thin 1 meter. That's it, no exceptions, just one piece to build everything from base to roof to the tiniest detail. Let's see what we could come up with. So I'm starting off by laying down the base and aligning my very first scaled down wooden pillar. I trimmed it up with a nice brown color to give it that cozy, earthy fantasy cottage vibe. Building fantasy cottages has always been one of my favorite things to do. There's something about the shapes, the coziness, and the storybook feel of it all. I love when buildings feel like they belong in a forgotten fairy tale forest, and this challenge just makes that even more fun. There's also something really satisfying about starting something from nothing and slowly watching something come to life piece by piece. Especially when you're allowed only one shape. Like you see the possibilities start forming, and it's that weird moment where you think, okay, maybe I can actually pull this off. Now the fun part with using just one piece is figuring out how far you can stretch it. With the scaling tool obviously in Planet Coaster 2, one wooden pillar can become a roof shingle, a window frame, a crooked chimney, or even a lantern. It sounds crazy, but it actually works. You start realizing how versatile one object can be when you're forced to push it. Like here, I'm making the roof. That's just a bunch of rotated and scaled pillars stacked together. The little trim under the roof line, more pillars. The whole thing is just a forest of tiny reshaped sticks. And the more I worked on it, the more ideas start popping up. Like, oh wait, this could be the edge of a planter, or maybe this same shape could be used to frame a little garden bed. You start layering shapes in new ways and thinking outside the usual set pieces. Honestly, I was impressed with how quickly my brain switched into this creative mode. Making the window and door frames was surprisingly fun. Normally I'd grab a pre-made door or use a few trim pieces, but here I had to build every detail by hand. And somehow that limitation actually made it more satisfying to me. It challenged me to think in a different way, think outside of the box. There were a few times I caught myself reaching for another piece, like my brain just autopilot like, oh, let's go grab this hinge or that rock. And I was like, wait, I can't do that. It's just this piece. That's the whole point of this challenge. And let me tell you, making a decent looking door from a pillar takes some creativity. You can't just copy paste a default shape. You gotta shape it, frame the opening, add that hint of depth. But the cool part is, it makes your build feel yours. Like every inch of that door was handcrafted. Every window frame you made was handcrafted. And there's a bit of pride in that. And honestly, that limitation helps with creativity. When you only have one piece, you start to notice shapes and ideas you never considered before. I was using this thing like it was clay, bending it, scaling it, stretching it if that was a thing. Suddenly, I'm making tiny flower boxes, custom window trim, and even using layered pieces to create texture where you normally just place a flat wall. That's what I love about fantasy cottages. They don't have to be perfect. In fact, the more wonky they are, the better. That kind of wobbliness, twisted fairy tale look really shines when you're forced to use only one piece. It kind of reminds me of when you were limited as a kid and only had a handful of Lego bricks, but somehow you build a spaceship anyway. That's what this feels like, just letting imagination take over a bit. And I gotta say, there's something so relaxing about this kind of build. You fall into a rhythm, place, scale, rotate, again and again, flip it, try again. Suddenly, you look up and 2 hours have passed and now there's a whole cottage in front of you. At this point, I was just layering in the final details. I focused a lot on the patio space out front, building it out with scale pillars and adding a custom little fence around it to give it that cozy tucked away garden feel. I also made some custom flower beds along the edges using the same piece. It's kind of crazy how with the right scaling and rotation you can make even simple shapes feel like full-on decorative props. The flower beds really help soften the build and add a splash of life to the front. And yeah, by now the whole build really locked into that cozy fantasy look. Something warm and handmade, like a cottage you stumble across in an overgrown glade. Not too flashy, but full of charm. It feels like it belongs in a storybook village hidden just off the main path. I've even debated trying to make some little clutter bits, like maybe a broom or crate, but again, I'm sticking to the rules. So every little extra detail had to come from the same wooden pillar, no exceptions. That's what made this build feel so personal. So here it is, the Final Fantasy Cottage, made entirely from one wooden pillar. No extra pieces, no cheats, just me and the scaling tool. Every roof tile, every crooked board, every frame, detail, patio beams, all made from the same little pillar. And honestly, I'm kinda proud of how this turned out. It's cozy, and since I was curious how it would look if I added some foliage, clutter and lanterns, I threw in a few finishing touches just to see how far it could go. Here's how it turned out with just a little more added detail. Seeing it all come together like this, it really makes me want to do more of these one-piece market stalls, maybe a tower. That's a weird freedom in limitations, and I think this is something every builder should try at least once. If you want to try the one-piece challenge yourself, do it. Tag me on Twitter or Instagram or join the Discord with hashtag #OnePieceChallenge. I'll love to check out your creation and maybe even feature them in a future video. Show me what crazy stuff you can make with just one piece. Get creative, get weird, and let your imagination go wild. Just remember, only one piece, that's the rule. I do allow foliage though to add around whatever you're building to give it that little more depth and composition. If you enjoyed the challenge or just like watching a fantasy cottage come together in the weirdest way, hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. And if you're new here and into Planet Coaster 2 builds, tutorials, or just creative madness, make sure you subscribe for more. And hey, if you have a weird one-piece idea, drop it in the comments. Maybe I'll try yours next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.